everyone. I'm Angela, and I'm joined here with Jason DeFranco.
Hey.
How are you doing today, Jason?
Fantastic.
We're back here for another episode. Jason, what shirt are you wearing today?
Hey. What's it say?
That's what I do. I drink and I know things.
That's what I do. I drink and I know things.
Interesting.
Tyrion Lannister, Game of Thrones.
All right. Well, we have a lot to unpack this episode. We planned a good one. Little pun for what's ahead. In this episode, we're going to be discussing the importance of planning, discussing Jason's carefully curated strategic planning, including why he does it, and tips to help you become more structured. So, you mentioned last episode you became a planner. How do you feel about the quote, failing to plan is planning to fail?
I like it, but it's cliche. Like you see that everywhere. And like most cliches, it is a cliche because it's true, but also because it's overused. Like I thought about wearing a shirt that said that today because you asked me if I had a shirt that said that.
I did.
And I said, no, I don't have a shirt that says that because it's kind of cliche. It's one of those things that is kind of so obvious that everyone knows it. On the other hand, why wouldn't everybody plan then? If failing to plan is planning to fail, how many people do you know that set out to do something with the intent of not succeeding? It doesn't I mean, unless they're damaged. There's something wrong with them. They don't try to do something intending to screw it up. So it's kind of so obvious that it gets ignored.
Yeah. All right. So how essential do you think planning is for success?
It's absolutely essential. You can't succeed without planning unless it's luck. And 99% of successful people, luck had nothing to do with it. People say, oh, they got a lucky break. 1 in a million, sure. Okay, 1 in 100,000, 10,000, 1,000. 1 in 1,000 successful people are successful. Right place, right time, nothing else figured into it. Everybody else who's successful is successful because they planned, they had a skill set, they had an opportunity, they leveraged, they did things to become successful. Yeah, happenstance is a thing. Sooner or later, you get a break if you keep working at something. But the luck itself isn't the deciding factor.
Yeah, you're right. Explain a little bit more about the shirt for me. What does this mean?
Tyrion Lannister, he's one of the characters in Game of Thrones. Books are better than the show, especially the 8th season. But he's...
Controversial.
Yeah, he is a character who's a member of one of the noble houses, but he is a dwarf, so they consider him deformed, and he's kind of the joke of the family to everybody else. But that meant he was ostracized a lot when he was younger, and he spent a lot of time by himself thinking. And he developed a very keen mind. He's a very good planner. And he doesn't have an army, and he doesn't have a network of spies or any of these other things that any other key player has. But what he has is his mind and his plans. And he puts himself at parity with or beats most of the other people in the stories because of his planning. Even though they have a lot of advantages over him, it's his planning that sets him apart and puts him in front.
Yeah, I agree. That's good. That's a good person to look up to right there. All right. Do you have any questions for me, Jason?
Oh, yeah, I do, actually. You want to talk about how important planning is?
I do, yeah.
Let's try this. Suppose you're a supervillain, supervillainess. You're evil Angeli, and you have powers and all kinds of stuff. Doesn't matter what your powers are. You're a supervillain. And you're doing supervillain things. You're knocking over banks to build up your nest egg. You're looking to steal super weapons and do things like that, conquer the world, kidnap key people so that you've got leverage. Which superhero are you most worried about?
This is a good one. This is a stumper.
Yeah.
Oh, no. I think I'm going to go a little bit with what you were saying. I think I'd be very scared of Iron Man.
Iron Man's a good one.
He does have a team, but he built that team himself, which I think is very admirable. But he planned. He had an idea, and he built a whole empire.
Yep.
Which is very scary if a normal person can do that.
Sure.
So I think I'd be scared of him.
Yeah, that's a good answer.
Yeah.
Most people go with the cliche. They go, oh, Superman, he's all powerful or something like that. and that's the most common response. And you say, well, no, you're a supervillain with resources. You'd get some kryptonite if it was Superman. And there's an answer for each, there's a foil to each hero that if they were unstoppable, they wouldn't be heroes. They've got to have a flaw.
Yeah.
I'd be worried about Batman.
Would you?
Batman thinks and plans, and he plans everything. to the nth degree. Batman, they've done lots of stories where Batman has a plan to take out the entire Justice League if he needs to. Because, you've always got a thing where, oops, a superhero turned bad or got mind controlled or lost their memory and turned into a villain or something.
Yeah.
So Batman has a plan for every one of them, how he would take them out if he needed to. And it's been done in books and in TV shows where a villain gets a hold of Batman's notebook and starts taking everybody out with Batman's plans because they're so elaborate and specific. And he also has that thing that he just doesn't stop ever. Like, if you didn't kill him, you should be worried because he's coming back. You know? The other thing is, if you're a supervillain, most of the time you don't see Batman coming.
You don't.
He comes out of the night. He catches you by surprise. And if you see him, that's probably worse. Because in lots of circumstances, there's cases where, like, Batman allows himself to be captured by a supervillain. And they think, we've got Batman, we've done it. And he's like, no, I'm here for a reason.
I'm prepared.
And then the power fails and he steps out of the secret cell and things like that. Yeah. Or he's there as a distraction. Or he's there just to see exactly what the villains are doing so he can put the finishing touches on a plan.
He's one step ahead because he had the plan.
Has the plan.
Yep.
It doesn't matter what the powers are. He's got something to counter them.
I think something that all these villains and heroes have in common is that they have a very busy schedule, right?
Yeah.
All right, so I'm going to ask you, Jason.
Genius, billionaire, playboy, philanthropist. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, how would you describe your schedule and everyday applications?
Oh, God. I read once that the average person has to decide things 100 times a day. They get up in the morning, they have to decide what to wear, how to style their hair, how much makeup to put on if it's a girl, or guys too sometimes.
This sounds like me this morning, an hour ago.
Yeah, there's a bunch of things you have to decide. What are you going to eat for breakfast? Are you just having coffee? If so, what are you putting in it? All these things. And I heard that it said that by the end of the day, the average person has made 100 decisions, mostly very small decisions. They're not life-altering. But they got to think, do I want white or rye? Do I want mustard or mayo? So I started counting. And I did this last year. And I was at 100 decisions before 9 in the morning. So I said, okay, statistically, I have far more decisions to make because there are far more moving parts that involve me every day. So I'm busy, really, really, really busy. I'm not hands off on any of the businesses. So when I get done here, I'm going to go into the lab and work on a dental case for a little while. And then I'm going to go meet with the benefits coordinators to see how open enrollment's going.
Yeah.
Then I've got to sit with people and plan some changes in staffing in 2 of the departments next week.
And don't forget the 7 Habits course that we
have to do. And I'm teaching a course. So busy. Yeah. There's always something demanding my attention.
And, speaking of you counting, I remember a week or two ago, we were at a meeting and you kept getting like messages or something. And I asked you, I said, how many messages do you get a day?
Yeah.
And you showed me, and it was just scrolling and scrolling and scrolling. So you do have a very jam-packed schedule because of your schedule and how much you need to pack in, just let alone a week, a day. How do you filter out the most necessary tasks? How do you say, this comes first, I need this to be done now, and you can come after that?
Planning. I actually have started reorganizing my whole office again because there are so many things going on, and I've got whiteboards, and I've got notebooks, and I've got stuff on my computer. And I said, now I need a visual cue because I can get off track easily with so many possible things demanding attention. So I started reorganizing. I've got my strategy room next to my office at work. So in my office, I've cleaned it out of everything else. And the only thing that can go on the board is the 3 big items for this week. Anything that doesn't relate to that can't be in that room. I can have the planning room next door where I have all kinds of pathways and plans and things. But the room that I sit in most of the time only has 3 things on that board at any given time. So if something isn't one of those, then the only question is this a true crisis that must be handled right now by me? If it is, go for it. If it's not, find a place for it in the schedule.
Okay. So you kind of make a mental note, or how do you do that? You say, okay, this is going to come after I'm done with all this.
Frequently, I will delegate.
Okay.
I tell you, I tell somebody, go ask Melissa to put this on the calendar for Wednesday.
Yeah.
Or get some time with me first thing tomorrow morning, or something like that. I don't have enough time to write all these things on my calendar, but I know someone who does. And I'll say, have your team lead book it, or have Melissa take care of it, or whomever. But I will send them somewhere where it can get captured that I need time with that person.
So I want to talk a little bit about 7 Habits. That's a key source that you really recommend to anyone, so much that you're even teaching a course in about an hour or 2.
Yep.
So the quadrants, I think that's a very good way for people to start small. Someone that maybe doesn't have the lifestyle you do, where you are running 5 businesses and you have people that you can depend on, maybe it's me, and it's, okay, I need to do the laundry, I have to take the dog out, I have to go to the gym, but I also have to get my work done, I need to work on my website, whatever it is. How can the quadrants, how can I develop that into my life and implement it?
Good question. So the quadrants break things down by priority. And the 2 kinds of priorities are urgency and importance. And the thing is, people confuse the 2. It didn't originate in the 7 Habits. It was called the Eisenhower Matrix. President Eisenhower was known for having accomplished a huge amount of different things while he was in office. And he was asked more than once, how do you keep it all straight? How do you get this much done? Like, compared to other presidents, he got more done than presidents who were in office much longer. And they said, how do you get so much done? And he referred to this matrix. And the idea is, urgency is the consequence of not doing, importance is the consequence of not doing something. So if it is important for you to eat, you don't eat, you die. So that's pretty important. That's that on the scale of importance, that's up there. Urgency is how fast it has to happen. And you can have one or both of them on any demand on your time. When your phone is ringing, it is urgent because it's going to stop ringing soon. If you don't answer it now, you can't. But that doesn't make it important. Who's on the other end and what they need is what makes it important or not. If you pick up your phone because it's ringing and it seems very urgent, and you look and it says robocaller, you know immediately it's not important, and you turn it off. So the idea of urgency and importance is one that gets blurred because we have notifications. Oh, someone texted me. I have to see what they want. Oh, somebody called. Oh, I've got a voicemail. Oh, I've got an IM. Oh, we've got these constant distractions, things pinging us, trying to get our attention. Doesn't make them important. The classic example is if you late night TV infomercials. And they're like, come on down, first 10 customers, call now.
I have to call.
Yeah, they create a sense of urgency by saying, you must do it within this time frame. Do it before midnight. The first 20 people to do it. This might be your last chance. They manufacture urgency to the point where you're like, oh my God, I got to call right now if I want to get this thing that I am not interested in the first place. And all of a sudden it shifts and you go, oh my God, this isn't important. But I mean, my adrenaline was going, my heart rate was up. I'm feeling anxiety because I haven't dialed yet. But it wasn't important. So the 2 getting confused is the issue. Being able to separate out what's important, what has a true consequence for not doing it, and putting those things to the front of the line is what people struggle with. Because there are the constant demands on time, people feel pulled. So you look at something like preventive maintenance, getting the oil changed in your car. Okay, well, that's not urgent. I don't have to do that right now. But it is important, because if I don't maintain my car, it won't work properly. But that will change over time. You're supposed to get your oil changed every 6 months, 5,000 miles, whatever. It's supposed to be done in 6 months. Well, that's not urgent. That's sometime in the next 6 months. But if you wait 2 years and your car doesn't start, it now became urgent, because now you got to call an Uber or a tow truck or whatever. So if you don't attend to those important but not urgent things, they will shift into being both urgent and important before long.
Yeah. I think a good exercise that I recommend, or you recommended in your course, was take a week, find out what you do, write down everything you do,
Yep.
and then figure out what will go on what, and then from there, the next week maybe you can start planning that out.
Yeah.
If you can explain that a little bit more.
Sure.
Yeah.
The coolest thing is figuring out the most powerful word in the English language or any language. No.
Mm-hmm.
No is the most powerful word. And people don't like to say no. If I ask you for help, you want to say yes. As a human, as an empathic being, we want to say yes to other people unless we really don't like them. And even then, sometimes we feel obligated to say yes, even though we don't want to. The thing is, saying no is okay. And our conscience might bother us, or our guilt might kick in and say, oh, you really should.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not necessarily true. When you say no for the right reason, it's a good thing, not a bad thing. If someone asks me to come over and help them wash their car, now the empathic human being in me who likes other people wants to say, yeah, I want to help you.
Mm-hmm.
But if I've got plans to take my son to a soccer game that night, I'm going to say no because I have a bigger yes.
Yeah.
I have a more important thing that I'm saying yes to, which forces me to say no to you.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not going to feel guilty about that because I know my priority. My son and my bond with him
Mm-hmm.
is more important than helping you wash your car. Your car will still get washed.
Yeah.
I am the only one that can build that bond with my son. Anybody could help you wash your car.
Exactly.
So having a more important yes makes it easy to say no for the right reasons.
That's a really good piece of advice. Is there a bigger yes? That's next
Exactly.
time. Is there a bigger yes? And if there is, then sorry, no.
Right.
And we're talking, and it seems like planning is really efficient. So why not do it? Why did you not just now start? Or what was the reason? What was the hardest part of?
Same as everybody else. One, it takes time and commitment.
Mm-hmm.
And you're not going to see an immediate return on that time.
Mm-hmm.
Most people would rather just get into the situation and figure out what needs done. Most people don't plan because of variables. Because, well, I can't plan my whole day. I don't know what's going to happen after lunch. I don't know who's going to call. I don't know who's going to need something. I don't know how long this is going to take. And because of that uncertainty, they feel like planning is a wasted exercise. But it's not, because planning helps eliminate and predict some of those things.
Mm-hmm.
You'll predict which things are likely to come up and how you'll respond to them without knowing what they are specifically.
Yeah.
You say, I know there's going to be some kind of an issue that an employee is going to have a problem today
Mm-hmm.
and want an answer to something. Well, that happens every hour.
Yep.
That happens every day. So I know somebody's going to have some questions or need something clarified.
Mm-hmm.
How am I going to react to that? Well, if it's during this hour, I'm not going to react to that because I'm going to be teaching a course.
Mm-hmm.
If it's right now, I'm going to be participating in a conversation with you. I'm not going to respond. My phone is off. I have planned and told people what to expect from me. Do not expect me to answer between 9 and 10.
Mm-hmm.
I'll be doing the podcast, so I won't be answering my phone. If you have a problem, don't come looking for me.
Yeah.
I won't be available. So planning helps you notify other people
Mhm.
about what to expect, and also helps clarify what's important within certain windows. I can shut the door during this time and concentrate on this very important matter without feeling guilty because that's what I planned to do right now.
Yeah. It's a relief. It's
Yeah.
almost, as someone who is anxious, I feel like planning just really calms that. I know
Sure.
this is what I'm going to do. And even though a problem may occur or something, I know that there's a plan and I can be calm. And in a way, it's like if you have a really rough day, like you know that there's going to be a hard day ahead, you know, and you planned and you know that as long as I get through this, it's going to be fine.
Yeah.
So it's a really good way.
And people will come up to you with their chaos.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God, what are we going to
Yeah.
do about it? And if you have a plan, you're the one going, calm down.
Yep.
We'll figure this out. Tell me it again.
Yeah.
What's the real problem here? What do they need?
Mhm.
And you can ask the right questions because their chaos isn't yours.
Mhm.
It's theirs. And you can take a look at it and solve it.
Yeah. That's one of the biggest things I've seen is like you can see what other people's solutions are from
Mhm.
far away.
Yeah.
I've noticed that. So like we said, planning is everywhere. I personally like to plan on like my planner. I like to write. I'm a writer.
Yep.
Do you have something like that? Like, are you a writer? Do you like to use your phone? What method do you like to use
I
to?
like to write. I like all the tools. I constantly have my phone in my hand making a note about something, whether I'm voice texting a note to myself or sending a text to somebody to solve something. But I just use that mostly for, immediate communication
Mhm.
or collecting information. I'll make notes to myself to think about something. I'll make notes about what kind of a problem we have in an area. Um, but when I actually plan, I sit down with paper.
Okay.
And I don't use a notebook. I find it too constraining.
Mhm.
The beginning of planning for me is almost like brainstorming. It is if it's a new idea, I'll just brainstorm an idea. But even when I'm just planning my week, I will sit down with my notes throughout the week
Mhm.
and lay them all out, and it looks like a brainstorming session, and I'm
Yeah.
just grouping things.
Yeah.
But what I put together is written, and then I'll use the tools. I'll use the calendar. I will use digital tools to plot out certain things, like the
Mhm.
calendar. I'm deciding which time I'm doing that, what day I'm doing that. But I maintain a written document, and it's freeform. It's on blank white printer paper.
Mhm.
It's not even on lined paper, because lots of times I write the way I think. I'll
Mhm.
write bigger certain words, or I'll circle things, or I'll draw arrows connecting things, because I want a picture of my thought process around an item so that I
Mhm.
can make sure to handle it.
So Jason has a really good strategic planning formula, I
Mhm.
guess you could say. So he's going to take us through his strategic planning session,
Mhm.
which is amazing, and every Sunday, right?
Every Sunday.
Every Sunday. So Jason, if you could just take us through how you do it.
Sure. Like I said, I collect the data through the week. On Sunday, first thing I do, I go into my rec room and clean,
Mm-hmm.
because I very much believe that if you're in an organized setting,
Yep.
you function better.
1,000%, yeah.
So I'm going in first thing on Sunday morning. There might be a martini glass on the bar from the night before, or I left a plate from something we were snacking on, popcorn, watching a movie the night before. First thing I do is clean. I get the entire room completely clean, wipe down the bar, put everything in the dishwasher if it needs be, and the entire place is spotless, and I clear off the entire top of the bar to create space.
Mm-hmm.
Then I lay out everything I have from the week. Sometimes they're Post-its, sometimes I've got notes on my phone. I'll just start grabbing some blank sheets of paper and jotting things down in categories. And it looks like a Staples store blew up in my house for a little while. There will be all different, there will be notebooks and loose leaf and printouts. There will be meeting minutes. There will be emails from people, text messages from people, and all of my various notes from the week. And I'll just lay them all out and look at them for a few minutes. And I'll say, okay, what am I trying to do here? I'm trying to plan my week. Number one, what are the 3 big things that need to happen this week? And I will create those categories. Number 2, how do all of these things connect to that? Of all these things spread out on my bar, which are part of that and which are not? And I'll separate them into basically 4 piles: object 1, 2, and 3, and other.
Mm-hmm.
So that I am clarifying, if I said these are the 3 biggest things of the week, and I still have a stack of other, am I sure those are really, if item 1 has got 20 things on it, and item 2 has got 20 things on it, and item 3 has 2,
Mm-hmm.
but I've still got 50 items that need handled this week, maybe 3 isn't supposed to be one of the 3 biggest things this week. Maybe I should reassess that.
Yeah.
So it's very visual for me.
Okay.
I'm making sure there's a density of concepts, ideas, opportunities, problems contained within the 3 things I need to do this week. And then I will start adding lists of people. I'll have little color-coded Post-its, lined Post-its, and each color is a different person.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll put their name at the top of the Post-it, and I'll start going through these 3 objectives and the miscellaneous and say, okay, here's the things that relate to Melissa. I'm going to have to get with her about this and this and this and this.
Yep.
And they may be from different elements of the week, but they all relate to her. And then the things for Angeli that relate to media, etc.
Mm-hmm.
And I will go through and figure out who are the people I most need to talk to this week. And then I will look at the projects that are ongoing. What state are they in? Are they on track? Are they falling behind? Do they need to be adjusted? And what do I need to do about those? And it starts to settle into patterns. While I'm doing that, I get distracted.
Okay.
I will think of more things, which can take me off, just like when we're having a conversation. I end up 3 branches off the main trunk of the conversation and say, how did we get here? And the same thing will happen. I'll start thinking, and I just, as fast as possible, I jot them down on a spare sheet of paper. These are things to come back to later. Stop thinking on them. You got to solve this. And if I start to lose momentum, I will change up the environment. I'll take a break for a minute, go get some water. I'll change the music. In the rec room is where my pool table is. I'll stop and shoot pool with myself for a little while, just to calm my mind, just to do a different kind of exercise. And I find pool works because it's geometry. It's angles and vectors of force. So it's physics and geometry tied together. And that's a very good exercise for my brain, because lots of times planning turns freeform, and I start thinking about people and psychology and stuff, and that can get deep, and that takes you away from the structured planning method. So I'll find something else. If it starts to become too many things, I will change the music to change my mental energy. When I start planning with classical music. Classical music is the most structured of music. It has the most history, and it had the most work go into creating it. Classical music is very mathematical, so it helps me order my thought process. But if it's getting deep, I'm going to switch to heavy metal. I am going to switch to music that energizes me. I'll switch to angry music. I'll be Five Finger Death Punch and In This Moment and things like that, where it's getting my blood flowing again and it's energizing me. I think about, if you've ever seen the movie Swordfish, there is a great scene. Hugh Jackman plays a hacker in that movie. It's a great movie. But Hugh Jackman at one point has been given an assignment by a criminal to create a virus. And he's in a room by himself with this mega computer with 9 screens and 6 keyboards and everything. And he's being very athletic as he's doing it. He's not just sitting at a desk typing. He's standing up. He's jumping from keyboard to keyboard. He's moving around, and he's got a bottle of wine, and he's spinning in circles. He's clapping his hands, and he'll hit a wall where he's frustrated, and he'll sit down and put his head in his hands for a second and push his hair back and get refocused and go back in to get a fresh bottle of wine and hit it again. I'll do those kinds of things.
Is there a reward system? Is that kind of what it is?
Rewarding is getting to stop.
Okay.
Yeah. I usually plan some family activity at the end of it. Depending on whether I'm planning early or late, I will plan that, when I'm done planning, I'm going to go fight wrestle with Alex, or I'm getting in the pool with the kids, or we're going out for dinner or something. If I'm planning late, then I take a break in the planning to put the kids to bed. And late night planning is a different kind of reward. I can start making martinis and start having other fun. So I will, definitely have a reward system for finishing.
Okay.
Not along the way.
Yeah. Sometimes some people do, okay, if I get this much done, that's what I would do in school. It's if I get this much work done, I'll have a drink or something. But I guess that makes it go a little longer. Yeah. Because it's hard to kind of reel yourself back in. I feel like when you're in the zone, you're in the zone.
And planning has become a system for me. So I know where I am in the process. It's the same process each time, even though it's different data and I may come to different resolutions, but the process is the same. So I can tell I'm halfway through, or I'm going to need longer, that kind of thing. And that helps. Yeah. It's not an endless process. There is a finish line, and I know about where it is. Okay, I'll be done around 2 o'clock or 4 o'clock or whatever. That helps a lot.
Did it take you a while to... Is this a perfect process? Or are you still tweaking it?
No such thing as perfect. Nothing's ever perfect. I'm always tweaking. But tweaking can get tedious. It can get in the way. You make tiny refinements and they don't actually help, and it was wasted. I try to look at the result. If the result is a great week that went according to my plan, even in spite of all the chaos that happens in a week, then it worked, do it that way again.
Okay.
If I notice that every so often I notice, I'm not quite as effective as I have been in the past. Something is starting to get a little too routine. Something's, I'm not using that edge anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I'll look at planning first.
Mm-hmm.
What happened with planning? Was the planning specific enough? Did I have good enough goals? Did I engage the right people the right way? And I'll look at that planning process and tweak it.
Did it take you a while to come up with this rhythm? Yeah.
50 years? No. I didn't
And
start
counting.
planning seriously until about 4 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And when I started, I saw an immediate improvement, but it took about 4 months to refine the process into something repeatable.
Gotcha.
I'd have good weeks and bad weeks, and it took a while of assessing that before I could get to kind of this basic formula of how I do it.
And how does this planning session, because this is, yes, it's your businesses, but it's more of a personal one, I feel. How does that differ from your business planning one when you're with your partners, when you're with Melissa, our HR director? How does that, how are those two different?
So the one I do in isolation is for me. It's to organize my thoughts, my plans, make sure everything's in alignment with my values and my personal mission statement and things like that, so that I'm not climbing a ladder and get to the top and find out it's leaning against the wrong wall. It's kind of backing up and doing a 30,000-foot view instead of zooming in initially. And then I gradually zoom in more and more to the granular. Team planning sessions are very different. It's either problem solving or brainstorming. Problem solving, we have an issue in this department or with this business or this business unit, and we need to come together, and it's going to take multiple perspectives to ensure we've got the right answer at the end of it. If it's not problem solving, if it's creative, it's brainstorming. Hey, what should we do in a new market? What new products should we be looking to offer? Is this a good idea as a new structure? And those will start out as brainstorming sessions. Sometimes those end with me taking the minutes, the notes from that meeting, into my private planning session.
Okay.
And then I sort through it and process it mentally and try to hone it into what I really need it to be. Sometimes the group sessions are I've come up against a wall in my private planning. And I'm like, this is going to take other people's input. Or I think this is a great idea, but I want to test it. One of my favorite ways to test things, the Socratic method, hey, poke a hole in it. The TV show House was one of my favorite shows when it was on because I loved Hugh Laurie and his arrogant mode, but I also loved in every episode the Socratic method. They would start out with a belief, with a concept, and test it. And they would test it verbally. They would write ideas on a board and pick one and say, we think it's lupus, poke holes in it. Well, it can't be because this. Oh, these numbers are wrong. It doesn't match this. And they would argue. It's a debate. And it's the Socratic method. It's what Socrates taught. That's why it's named after him. That he was, when you're debating logic, you can have your own concept and believe it 100% and be wrong. It's only when you expose it to other people's ideas that you see if it can hold up under scrutiny. And I love that concept. I love 3 smart people trying to tell me I'm wrong, trying to pick apart an idea and force me to defend it. And sometimes I can defend it really well, and I have a greater sense of confidence in the idea when I'm done. Other times, like, oh, shit. That's true. I didn't think of that. And that might just need a little course correction, or that might torpedo the whole thing because I didn't see something. I had a blind spot. Someone else saw it, and I'm like, whoa, we can't do this. No way. Back up.
And that's why that's important. We're tying it back from last week's episode. It's important to surround yourself with people that have the same, mentality as you, not seeing things the same way. But, can you imagine if you were with people that couldn't prove you wrong and, that couldn't think that way, then you're stuck trying to figure out things on your own.
Absolutely. And that's why I push people to challenge me. I don't want a bunch of yes men or yes women around me.
That's the worst
I hate
thing you
it.
could do for yourself.
When I say something and I go, okay, does everybody agree? And everybody goes, uh-huh. My first thought is, what do I need you for then? Why did I need to have a meeting if everyone's just going to nod their heads? I could do that by myself and not waste all that time. And it's also people have a hard time arguing with authority sometimes.
Mhm.
They like to criticize authority when it's out of the room, but
Mhm.
it's the speak truth to power is the phrase. If you think it's wrong, say you think it's wrong, even if the person saying it is in authority. Say it
Mhm.
respectfully. Don't pick a
Yeah.
fight for no reason.
Correct.
But if people don't have the courage to tell me they disagree with me, I don't like them
Mhm.
very much.
Yeah. And if you're in that situation, you're like, oh, I don't want to speak up. You're gonna get stuck in a what if situation. What if I did speak up? What if I did tell him to solve this problem this way? What if I could have solved this problem? So just do it.
Yeah.
Just tell him how you feel.
Say it.
Say it loud and proud.
It might be you've got a really good idea
Yeah.
that you kept to yourself and now you look stupid.
Yeah. How many scientists, how many people haven't crossed a great idea just because they were scared to say it?
Yep.
So can you get into some tips for beginning planners? Because obviously this is high level, advanced. You have 5 businesses running around. You have a lot.
This took a while.
Yeah. So just some tips. How can someone not get distracted? How can they buckle down
Sure.
and start?
The first thing about planning is what are you trying to do? You have to have a goal in mind.
Mm-hmm.
I want to plan. Plan what? Why? If you get done planning and it worked, what's that result look like?
Mm-hmm.
If you're planning a day at Disney, how are you planning it? What are you trying to accomplish? Are you trying to see as many rides as possible?
Mhm.
Are you trying to watch the carnival or the parade twice? Are you trying to encounter as many characters? Are you trying to avoid as many crowds? What your goal is changes how you plan.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're planning something, if you're planning a trip, what is it you're trying to get out of the trip?
Mm-hmm.
That's the first thing to ask yourself so that you can plan appropriately.
Would you suggest maybe them taking that and making that into like their mission statement, maybe writing it down somewhere so they
Yeah.
can know that that's what they're aiming for?
Here's what I want out of this trip, day, business, meeting, whatever it is. What do you want to get out of it before you start trying to plan it? People jump into, well, here's how I'll organize it.
Mm-hmm.
Why? Did you organize it that way because you just need a structure so it makes sense to you? Is that structure going to support getting you where you want to be with the plan?
Mm-hmm.
Because that's the point of a plan. A plan is to get you from A to B. If you don't know what B is, you're not going to write a plan that gets you there.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to start with the end in mind. If you have the end in mind, then you can start figuring out the pieces that get you there and write that.
Mm-hmm. And trial error. Just try it.
Yeah.
Maybe you aren't a visual person like Jason. Maybe you are something else. You just have to try it and see if it works. And if it does, amazing. And if it doesn't, then that's one thing that you crossed off your list. You can go on to the next and try something else.
Sure.
So you say you plan every Sunday, right?
Mm-hmm.
Once a day. How would you say your productivity went?
Initially, it went down
Mm-hmm.
because it was artificial.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, oh, wait, I have to refer to my plan for the day. And, oh, wait, why'd I put that at 10 o'clock? That's stupid. I should have put that later.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a distraction almost. It was forced structure that didn't necessarily work
Mm-hmm.
just for the sake of structure. As I refined it, it got better and better. And I recall the day that my assistant came in and told me I was done for the week.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, what do you mean? That can't be possible. And she said, yeah, you did everything. And I said, that's crazy. It was like a Thursday afternoon or something.
Mm-hmm.
And I always have a bunch of things left over at the end of the week that I wished I had gotten to.
Yeah.
I said, give me the list. And I looked at the list and everything was checked off. It was all done. And I'm like, this must have been a really short list. And that was the key.
Mm-hmm.
I have made notes for a long time, whether I was planning or not. I've always made notes about what I want to happen, not necessarily planning it out,
Mm-hmm.
but a to-do list of, well, this year we should make sure that we change our management system, train new managers, things like this. I'd make a to-do list all the time.
Yeah.
Sometimes it was for a week, sometimes for a year. Sometimes it was just stream of consciousness notes about ideas that I should think about doing. So I could refer back.
Yeah.
So I found a week from the year before where I'd made sort of a to-do list, but not a plan. And that list was much smaller than the one I just accomplished this week. And by the time I got done reading things over, I'd done 3 times, maybe 4 times what I would have done in a week without planning. It was literally, the to-do list for that week would have been a month without planning. And it was all done.
Mm-hmm. And so do you write very specific? Because I'm guessing your to-do lists were very vague. So you don't.
Not necessarily. Sometimes the to-do lists were
Mhm.
specific about the outcome, but not
Okay.
how to achieve it.
Okay.
My planning sessions have come to result in specific actions that are in keeping with the result I want,
Mhm.
but they might not be broken down granular. Talk to this person, then this person, then
Mhm.
this person, then this. Instead, it's here's what I need to accomplish. It's going to take these people. And I may talk to them as a group. I may talk to them individually. It may be an email to one of them. So I don't go so granular down to the individual task minute by minute.
Mhm.
I get the concept. I get the people that are going to be involved and what success looks like and how much of my time it's going to take. I generally get to that point and that's enough.
Mhm. And what I do love about this is how open you are to having people join these
Oh, yeah.
strategic planning sessions. It's kind of like, yeah, if you want to come on a Sunday,
Guest planners.
guest planners. But I
And-
think that's great.
And some people come and they're like a fly on the wall. They're like, I just
Mhm.
want to see how it happened. And
Mhm.
they end up laughing because I do, I'll be working on something and I'll hit upon a solution
Mhm.
and I'll clap and spin around and be happy and take a drink and then I'll sit there with my head down, just banging my head against the bar, trying to
Mhm.
think of something and shake my head and change the music and walk around the room pacing for a little while. And it's very physical, my
Yeah.
planning. My planning is cerebral and physical.
It's a workout.
Yeah, it can be. And sometimes sometimes I'll take a break
Mhm.
and I'm like, this is just, I'm hitting a wall here. I
Mhm.
need a reset. And I will walk out and tell the kids we're going swimming for an hour.
Mhm.
Then dad's going back to planning. Or I'll put on my Oculus and kill aliens for a little bit and, get out some frustration. I'll do something physical for a little bit just to break that,
Mhm.
whatever that lock is I've encountered, and then go back to it.
What do your kids say about your sessions? They're when dad locks himself in there.
They do. They understand it now. They know it's serious.
Mhm.
That it's not dad's mad or something. They
Mhm.
know dad's really got to concentrate, and they know it's valuable. That they've been told. Alicia will tell them, Daddy has 100 people counting on him to make the right decisions,
Mhm.
and he needs to think about those decisions. You guys know how hard it is trying to pick what you're going to spend your allowance on or where
Mhm.
you want to go next. So dad's got to think about those kinds of things for sometimes hundreds of people, and
Mhm.
he's got to get it right. So he needs to be left alone to think about it sometimes. But it's cool. It's kind of like coming home when you have a dog.
Mhm.
I will come out of a planning session, even if it's for a break just to get some
Yeah.
water or something, and the kids will jump up, Daddy, you done?
Daddy.
And there's a little twinge of guilt there if I'm
Aw.
not.
Yeah.
Alex will jump up, Daddy, you done? I want to fight wrestle. And I'm like, not yet, buddy, but I'll
We'll
be
get
done by 4 and then
Yeah.
we'll do it, that kind of
Oh,
thing.
that's so sweet.
So they take it seriously.
Mhm.
They don't interrupt me unless it's really important. They'll keep the dogs quiet. The dogs start barking. They'll take the dogs and take them
The
outside or
little
something. They're
monsters.
like, no, Daddy's got to concentrate
Mhm.
and stuff. So it's almost a team effort sometimes.
That's awesome.
And they'll ask me, the first thing in the morning, Dad, are you planning early or late? And I'll say, well, I'm going to plan after lunch.
Mhm.
Okay, great. Can we make breakfast? And
Yeah.
they'll plan ideas around my planning.
Sweet. Yeah, that's good. And you're teaching them young.
Yeah.
They're going to be planners when they
Oh, yeah.
they have the best teacher for that. So yeah, that's awesome. I'm so happy that you got to share with us your strategic planning.
Sure.
It's like I one day would like to plan with you.
Sure.
Last episode we did rapid fire questions.
Yeah, non-rapid fire.
Yes, Jason style.
Semi-rapid.
Semi. We're actually gonna add something to our podcast, which is called kind of like a call-in question type. We are trying to build a platform right now where you guys can easily put any questions that you may have, any topics, any suggestions. Like we've said, Jason has a lot to share. So if you ever have anything that you would want answered, you can check that platform coming out soon. It's going to be a website. It's going to have everything for you guys, resources, books, Jason's favorite movies, recommendations, all that good stuff. But for now, if you do have a question that you want to send in, you can either leave it in our YouTube channel, the comments down there, or we have a Gmail, a new day, a new shirt at gmail.com. It's going to be in our description. So go ahead and leave that there. So I have some questions for you from our audience. So we're going to start out with, Have you always been a person who makes plans, or did the planning start when you started your businesses?
I've always planned on some level, not necessarily written plans. Um, I'll tell you, I was 16 and some friends and I were going to the movies, and I was the last one to get there because I was working and most of them didn't have jobs that kept them away that much. I was the last one to get to our friend's house where we were meeting to go to the movies. And I got there, and since I was late, we were in a hurry. I was like, hey guys, sorry it took me so long. All right, what movie we going to go see? And they said, we don't know. We were waiting for you. Now there were 6 of us. And in my mind, I went, really? The 5 of you couldn't figure out which movie we were going to until I got here? I mean, in the one sense, maybe it's just courtesy. They were waiting to let me weigh in. But I was kind of frustrated. I'm like, you guys have been sitting around doing nothing but play Dungeons and Dragons and video games. I've been working for the last 6 hours until now when we could go to the movie. You guys haven't talked about it? And it occurred to me then that I was the one that usually made the plans, that I either made the decisions or had the ideas of where we should go next. And I was also the one that would weigh in if I disagreed with what somebody said. Someone would say, we should go see this movie. And I would say, oh, I don't want to do that because it's only playing at that one theater. Then they've got shitty popcorn. I don't want to go there. So I always had an idea of how I wanted things to go. It was usually in my head. I only made written plans later on, and they were usually pretty loose. When I had a limited amount of time to do a lot of things, I'd make a to-do list or something like most people. But the first times that I really planned were later in life. I was probably 35 the first time I made a true plan that extended beyond a week. When I opened Team Solutions 10 years ago now, I sat down for 3 days and wrote a 32, 34-page business plan that was very granular, very specific, had the 30,000-foot view, but had everything down to the budgets for the first 3 years already written out. So that was probably when it became more important. There was more at stake. So I took it more seriously and started really writing things.
I can really relate to for being the planner friend.
Yeah.
Every single time my friends and I would take a trip, I'd be the one that would have everything, like every box checked off, what we were doing at what time. So it does get a little frustrating when you're that friend. All right. So we have another question. Jason, how are you sure you are taking the right decision professionally or otherwise? What is your thought process when presented with a hard decision in order to obtain the best possible outcome? Is there a method you go through? Is it a gut feeling? Both? Neither?
So first thing, it depends on the weight of the question or the decision. If the decision is, where should I have lunch today? That's a pretty minor decision. So I don't put a lot of effort into it. If the question is whether to open or close a location or a department, well, that's huge. That can affect a lot of people. It can have severe financial repercussions if I get it wrong. That can impact our reputation. If we start having problems that are visible to the outside world, it makes people doubt us and lose confidence. So there could be a lot of different kinds of costs if you make a bad decision in certain areas. So the more important the decision, the higher the gain for getting it right and the higher the damage for getting it wrong determines how much effort I put into it. A gut decision is a funny thing. Most people don't actually make decisions with their gut. They're making a decision based on a bunch of data that they've already processed many times before. So they're doing it kind of automatically, sometimes without realizing it. Your gut reaction about which line in the supermarket to get in sometimes is dead wrong, and sometimes it's great. And if you study when you get it right, it's because you processed, maybe that's a younger checkout person who's moving faster because they're in a hurry to get somewhere versus a person who's just marking time because they don't have something else to do right now, or things like that. Lots of times it's just pattern recognition. It's not so much this feels right in my gut. I've noticed a pattern that gives me some confidence that this will be okay. So gut decision-making has a place. Gut decision-making about people, I find, is far more accurate. If you try to assess a person analytically, you'll often get it wrong. And you go, I had a bad feeling about that person, but everything on their resume looked so good, I went with the data. I guess I should have gone with my gut. That's something people say a lot, and that's one I say a lot. I'm like, I didn't particularly feel energized about the person, but they had all the credentials we needed.
Something
On
told me
paper,
I
they
shouldn't
looked
date
great.
them.
Yeah, it's that kind of a thing. So how do I make sure I'm making the right decisions? I never know for sure. You're never going to. You cannot achieve 100% certainty about something that hasn't happened yet. But you can use the data, you can use the tools, you can use the patterns that form, and you can get pretty close very quickly. Then you have to decide, am I close enough to make a call? Or do I need to get closer? I'm 80% of the way there. I'm 80% sure this is the right call. Therefore, I'm going to order pepperoni, not pepperoni and mushroom. 80% is probably good enough when you're deciding what toppings are on the pizza. But if it's about a person's future, 80% isn't that great a ratio.
Yeah.
You probably want to be more sure than that. So, okay, how can I be more sure? And what's that going to take? If I can get to 80% in 5 minutes, can I get to 90% in 20? Can I get to 99 in 40 minutes? Because that's probably 40 minutes well spent if it's an important decision. If it's going to take me days of research, and we're talking about something that doesn't have those kinds of consequences, I'm not going to put in days of research to try and dial in to get the perfect answer.
Yeah.
Also, is the answer final? Am I making a decision that I can take back if it turns out it's wrong? Or is this a decision that once I've made it, there's no going back? Lots of our development is decisions made on 80%. I get to 80 and go, this looks like a pretty good idea. Let's get started, because I can't plan for every problem we're going to have along the way until we get started. So we'll start a project. We'll launch a product. We'll open a department with 80%. Because I know it's probably not 80% once we get going.
Yeah.
Some of these things are going to work out fine, and I don't need to worry about them. And some things I haven't predicted are going to go wrong, and I'll have to solve them. 80% is good enough. Let's get going and see what we've got.
You say a lot, what's the most viable,
The minimum viable solution.
Minimal.
Lots of producers will say a minimum viable product. I think Seth Godin uses that a lot. He'll say, you want to be a podcaster. What's the minimum viable product? What's your minimum viable audience? Do you need to have 400 episodes before you start launching? Or do you need to have 3 so that people can see what you're about and you can see how much they like it?
Yeah.
The minimum viable product on a tool. It doesn't have to be fancy. It doesn't have to be pretty. It doesn't need the fancy lettering and logos. It just needs to be a prototype I can try to see if it works. If it works, then we can keep going with the process of refining the tool into something else. So lots of times, I just want a prototype. I want to get far enough that I can test the theory, test the premise. Yeah. Then I'll know if we're going to keep going with it or not.
All right. So if you would like one of your questions answered, make sure to either use our email or go on our YouTube channel. We're so happy to be doing these, and we hope that you have been liking and listening. So give us a follow on our YouTube. Check out Spotify. We're everywhere. And we'll see you next time.
Thanks.
Thank you, Jason.
Thank you. I mean, we planned the podcast, right?
Yeah.
What was our plan?
Our plan was to get other people to plan.
All right.
Yeah.
Did we do it?
We did.
I think so.
I think we inspired everyone here.
Well, obviously.
Duh.
Somebody must have been inspired.
Exactly.
If we inspire even one person.
Then we did it, Jason. Yeah.